Meet me at the Christian Revival Center. Follow the sound of the music playing. Walk the path between the railroad tracks, and you can find me there. You can find me there.
We're going to take this passage that Caleb read just now, and we're going to read it, verse 3 and 4 of 2 Thessalonians. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless there come a falling away first. And the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worship, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. America and the entire world is under mass deception. Mass deception has taken hold of every facet of our lives. This deception uses television, radio, newspapers, magazines to broadcast and publish vast amounts of false and misleading information in an effort to strengthen its power and stranglehold upon the people. The entertainment industry is also a tool for this mass deception. Music, movies, drugstore novels, all are used for mass deception. School books, books about history, and even simple grade school books are used to promote this mass deception. Television preachers are willing tools for mass deception. Even vacation Bible schools held by churches each summer around the country is a tool for this mass deception. Christian schools are promoting deception, and even salvation tracts passed out by energetic Christians are often, if not usually, promoting this mass deception. This one world church, this new religion, is frightening powerful and frightening deceptive beyond what I believe the understanding of most Christians. The success of this mass deception is extremely important for the future of this one world church. It is targeting white people. The deception does not target Africa or the offspring of Africa. The deception does not target the masses of India or China. The deception does not target the Arab world or the primitive Bushmen of Australia or the banana republics of South America or Central America. The success of the one world church depends on its ability to deceive those in America, Canada, Europe, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand, homelands of white people. and that is not every one of those countries, but it's targeting white people in those countries. And it's targeting white people because they are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The deception is only targeting white people. And what is the deception? How can we discern this deception? And the deception is, you got to hear me out, the deception is that presented by most churches is that the Antichrist is a bad person. That is the deception. The Antichrist is a bad person. Certainly you've heard this since childhood. We've all been told about how absolutely wicked and horrible the Antichrist is going to be. And he's going to bring his tribulation upon the world. Going to be a tribulation, last they say 70 years. And we are then told that just prior to the tribulation, some churches will say the church will be raptured out of the tribulation. There have been many thousands of sermons given throughout the years who have been identifying the Antichrist as somebody who is going to be evil and come into your home and destroy your community. And here are some of the people that over the years have been identified as the Antichrist. The Pope has often been identified as the Antichrist. Charlemagne was considered the Antichrist. Napoleon was called the Antichrist. Franklin Roosevelt was called the Antichrist. There have been others, no doubt. Mussolini has been called the Antichrist. Adolf Hitler has been called the Antichrist. Joseph Stalin, John F. Kennedy was called the Antichrist. Henry Kissinger was said by some people as the Antichrist. The Ayatollah Khomeini has been identified as the Antichrist. Ronald Reagan was called the Antichrist because he has 6 letters in each of his names, Ronald Wilson Reagan. Mikhail Gorbachev was identified the Antichrist, as well as Barack Obama, and no doubt many others. And I suppose the problem, at least the way I see it, and you may not see it this way, but here's what I'm presenting. The problem is that most Christians are looking for the Antichrist to be a man who attempts to turn people away from Jesus Christ and Christianity. In the minds of these people, and in their teaching and understanding, the Antichrist is going to introduce a false religion and attempt to deprive people of their Christian faith. Stories have been written, and I'm sure you've seen them, that the Antichrist is going to come, soldiers of the Antichrist are going to come into churches, rip Bibles out of people's hands, and force them to deny Jesus. In this way, most churches and Christians show the Antichrist as a totally evil, corrupt, and depraved person who is the exact opposite of Jesus. After all, he's the Antichrist. That is what is extremely wicked. World leaders so often are identified as being the Antichrist because they're really wicked, horrible people, so that must be the Antichrist. Now, I really want us to stop and think and consider this concept of deception. Who is being deceived and why? Most Christians think that as Christians they are somehow protected from deception because they are Christians, and they are therefore protected. And the only ones who will be deceived by the Antichrist is the non-Christians. They'll be deceived because they're not Christians. But is that true? Now, in Mark 13:5, Jesus talked to his disciples, and he says, "Take heed that no man deceive you." Jesus is concerned that even his own disciples might be deceived by the Antichrist. And the Apostle Paul gives us a warning in this verse we just read, 2 Thessalonians, not to be deceived. Again, in the same passage, we read about the great falling away. This is telling us that there will be many who will be deceived. Now, the great falling away, I've got it highlighted there in yellow. In some translations, the word falling away is apostasy. Means they're turning away from Jesus. The Holman Christian Standard Translation and the Darby Translation and New American Standard Translation all use the word apostasy. The New Century Translation says, instead of falling away, they use the phrase turning away. New Living Translation, the New International Version, and the English Standard Version use the word rebellion. Instead of saying there could be this falling away, there could be a rebellion. And the Good News Translation says this, the way I like it the best, it says it's going to be the final rebellion. The final rebellion. It is clear that this is speaking about Christians who have been deceived, I believe anyway, and fall away from the faith. It has to be referring to Christians getting caught up in the teachings of the Antichrist because they are falling away. Non-Christians have no faith to fall away from. So it cannot be non-Christian. The way I look at it, Christians are falling away from the faith. Again, I know that we have been taught that Christians have been taught that they're going to be shielded from this Antichrist deception, protected, and that they'll be therefore prevented from being deceived. In Revelation 12:9, we read that Satan will deceive the whole world. Deception, what you think, is when you think you know the truth, but it's not the truth, you just think it is. And of course, everyone believes that their belief is true. I understand that. The Baha'i faith even says all religions are true. I don't know how they figure that one out, but all religions are true. The vast majority of Christians today are already under the spell of mass deception, the way I view it. It begins with a false understanding of the Antichrist. The deception among Christians does not begin because the Antichrist lies about Jesus. Understand, the deception among Christians is not because the Antichrist is lying about Jesus, but because the Antichrist is lying about the Antichrist. He's lying about himself. Now, my dad was a staunch conservative, and he used to say that a conversation took place between a liberal and a conservative, and the liberal said to the conservative, let's make a deal. We'll stop telling lies about you if you stop telling the truth about us. So that's kind of what the Antichrist is doing. He's telling lies not just so much about Christ, but he's also telling lies about himself. The verse we read here, let's read it again. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day will not come unless the falling away come first, the rebellion come first. The man of sin revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that it worships, so that he sits as God in the temple of God. First off, understand that this statement by the Apostle Paul, and also the one by Jesus Christ in Mark 13, is a commandment. It is not a request. Christians are not simply asked, don't be deceived. They are commanded not to be deceived. When we are deceived, it's not because we are innocent victims. So often people say, well, I'm deceived, I'm an innocent victim. Well, not necessarily. Those who are deceived are guilty of violating the commandment of Christ. They are deceived because they want to be deceived and purposely choose deception. Someone might say, well, that can't be true. No one wants to be deceived. Well, yes, they do. When a person has an internet affair, it's because they want to believe the other person really loves them. When those Israelites made the golden calf and danced around it being deceived, or after being delivered from Egypt, and you know Aaron took all the jewelry, put into a deal, melted down, he said the golden calf rose out of the boiling metal. And then he told them, this is the God that delivered you from Egypt. They knew better, but they wanted to be deceived because they want an excuse for their sin. People are willing to be deceived, even choose deception, because they want an excuse for their sin. In Jeremiah 5:31, the prophets prophesy lies. The priests rule by their own authority, and my people love it this way. They love being deceived, he said. Why do people love being deceived? Because they want an excuse for their sin. In Isaiah 30, these people are like children who lie and refuse to obey. They refuse to listen to the Lord's teaching. They tell the seers, don't see any more visions. They say to the prophets, don't tell us the truth. Say things that will make us feel good. See only good things for us. Stop blocking our path. Get out of our way. Stop telling us about the God, the Holy One of Israel. We're being told that these people are choosing deception. Don't tell us the truth. Tell us only good things. You hear the song, something good is going to happen to you. I kind of like that song, actually. You know, I like to pause a song like that. But the point is, sometimes things that are good are not going to happen. And we have to have faith to plow through it anyway. So why do they want the prophets, the ministers of God, to stop telling them about the Holy One of Israel? Because they want an excuse for their sin. Has human nature changed? I don't think so. People still want an excuse for their sin. Christians who are under the deception of this false understanding of the Antichrist think that because they don't hang out at the wrong places, because they don't read the wrong books, or don't go to the wrong movies, that these little acts of righteousness will protect them from deception. The apostasy is falling away from the faith. These are Christian people. They are missionaries, they are pastors, Sunday school teachers. They pass out salvation tracts. They pray, they support the mission field. They don't go to bars. They're not alcoholics or drug addicts. They're good, clean, conservative Christians who are about to be deceived into worshiping the Antichrist. Why? Because the Antichrist does not look like the Antichrist they have been taught to look for. He looks entirely different. The deception is not that they have turned away from Jesus to follow another God or another religion. They are Christians. They'll never knowingly forsake Christ. The only way the Antichrist can get these Christians to follow him is to deceive them so they think he is Jesus Christ. Remember, what is he? He's sitting in the temple of God, telling people that he is God or represents God. In order to do this, the image of Christ must be changed. Remember, all the laws, it hinges on the two commandments. All the laws and the prophets hinges on these two commandments of what? Loving your God and loving your people. Matthew 22, 37 through 38. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first commandment, and the great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Now I want to point out that last phrase. On these two things hang all the law and the prophets. Everything you understand about the Bible, everything you teach, everything that you've been told is true. All the doctrines, the definitions of things, every emotion you may have, every standard of righteousness you may construct in your head or the church may tell you, everything about your life has to what? Fit into that last line. On these two things hang all the law and the prophet. Everything about your Christian faith hangs on those two elements. What were some of the deception fairy tales? Little Red Riding Hood actually believed the wolf was grandma. Why? Because the wolf looked like grandma. Likewise, the Antichrist will look like Jesus Christ. He will talk like Jesus. He will act like Jesus. He will indeed, in the minds of Christians, be Jesus Christ. And where are they finding this new Jesus? This new Jesus that they're worshiping is not found in he's not a wicked person. The Antichrist is not wicked or coming across as such. He's not in the bars. He is not in the gambling houses. He is not in some occult religions. He's not promoting anti-Christian behavior. The Antichrist is going to look, act, speak, and promote wholesome Christian values, ideals, and love, because that is how deception works. And where is he? Paul says he's in the churches. He's in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. How many people are going to their churches today? We have this increase of, we hear of increase of faith. People return back to faith. But all these faith actions, movies, so forth, every one of them, while they sound really promoting Jesus Christ, in the background, every one of them promotes interracial marriage. Every single one. That's why you got people like Tim Scott, who's supposed to be a born-again Christian, met his white wife at a Bible study. He is the church. He is in the churches. This Antichrist is not in the bars. He's not in some kooky religion. He's in a modern-day Christian church presenting himself as God. That's what the Apostle Paul says. Now, you probably get tired of this verse, but we'll read it again. Let no man deceive you, for that day will not come unless the falling away, the rebellion comes first, and the man of sin, the Antichrist, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God. What did he exalt himself above all that is called God? Remember, everything has to hinge on what? Those two commandments. Who exalts himself above everything that is called God. He exerted himself above those commandments, so that he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Antichrist is not sitting in some bars, not sitting in some kooky religion. He's sitting in our modern churches, presenting himself as a born-again Christian to deceive the people. Because the Antichrist, this one-world religion, looks real, sounds real, and feels real. Here in a few weeks, we'll help you how to identify that. Even though the Antichrist looks real, feels real, sounds real, there's a way to identify him. So if this Antichrist is going to be like Jesus and promote all the teachings of Jesus, why is he the Antichrist? It is because the image and teaching of Jesus has been changed. Remember that the followers of Jesus are to obey the what? 2 great commandments. Remember that the followers of Jesus are to love your God and to love your people. On that hangs everything about the Bible, every understanding you have of the Bible, everything, doctrine and beliefs, or is your emotion. What Jeremiah 17 is, the heart is deceitful above all things. Who can understand it? Your emotions. Emotion trumps logic every time. So the followers of Jesus sort of follow the first commandment. They proclaim a love for Jesus, for God, but they don't follow the second commandment of loving our people. It's a violation of the second commandment that Jesus said would become popular in the last days. It would be like the days of Noah, like the days of Lot. Widespread acceptance of miscegenation and sodomy. Widespread. Those are 2 things Jesus said to look for in the last days. I know churches talk about, the world is getting wicked. Yeah, it's getting wicked. We understand that. But what did Jesus say look for? As it was in the days of Lot, sodomy, and it was days of Noah, was miscegenation. But today's Jesus, the one we're hearing about today, our people used to obey these commandments of loving their God and loving their people. They may not have necessarily understood them, but we were a Christian people. We obeyed the laws of racial integrity. We maintained our racial integrity. We did not involve in a race, but we maintained our separation. People fail to remember that the word Antichrist has 2 meanings. We usually always think of the one meaning that the Antichrist is going to be this hateful person, bigoted person, making war against Jesus Christ. And that definition is somewhat correct. That is what anti would mean. But the word anti also means a duplication or a replacement. Although it's not generally used that way, but it means that what we're having here to this Antichrist is replacing the real Jesus by acting like that's why there's this deception. Christians aren't going to be deceived. They're not going to go down and worship some gooky guy at some crazy church somewhere. I mean, some of them do, of course. But for the most part, Christian people believe in Jesus. And they're not going to be following some kooky religion or some people that hates Jesus. And yet they're being deceived. This Antichrist opposes Jesus so that he can take the place of Jesus, so he can appear to be Christ. Those who are deceived think he is Jesus Christ. That is what Paul says, showing himself that he is God. Why do they think he is Jesus? Because he says all the things they have been taught to believe Jesus would say. The Antichrist promotes love. He promotes brotherhood of man. And everybody is our brothers. And he promotes tolerance. That's a good guy in the minds of most churches. And in the vast majority of churches across our country, that's how they look upon our Christian faith. Our Christian faith does not believe in hate or racism. Being a racist or believing in racism is worse than being a pedophile in the minds of these people. So they don't believe in that stuff because Jesus did not believe in racism. Jesus believed in brotherhood. Don't you know that? And everybody here hears that, and they believe that. Today's image of Christ is a false image, and this false image is created by false teachers. The image that people have of Jesus Christ today is one of racial reconciliation, interracial brotherhood, and interracial marriage. Christians who are faithful to the commandment, love your God, are condemned, ostracized, rejected by the church, and labeled as haters and racists. You know that's true. among all the churches, here is an example, or the church throughout the country. If they identify you, if you come on and talk about racial integrity, you're identified as a hateful bigot who doesn't have the Spirit of Christ in them. I've been accused of that. I was accused of that by Bryce Crawford here a few weeks ago and others. You've been accused of the same thing probably if you talk to people. If you believe in racial integrity, you're the Antichrist. You're the enemy of Jesus because Jesus believes in brotherhood, racial brotherhood. The deception gained its foundation by not only lying about Jesus, but also lying about the Antichrist. They have created a false image of the Antichrist and a false image of Christ because the modern church does not understand the new covenant. They are deceived. And because they do not love their people, their deception continues. They choose to be deceived. Let me finish reading there. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 7. I think I've got that on the screen. Let the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs of lying wonders, with all deceitfulness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion. They should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. They didn't believe the truth. What is the truth? I know people say, well, the truth, they didn't believe in Jesus, so forth. Yes, I suppose that's certainly part of it, but what does Matthew tell us? On these two things hang all the law and the prophets. If you reject those two things, you're rejecting truth. If you reject Jesus Christ, or you're rejecting racial integrity of loving your people, you are rejecting truth. That's what it says here. And so these people are saying, oh, God told me, or God, yeah, I'm sure God did tell them, because he sent strong delusion. They believe the lie that race mixing, interracial marriage, is God foreordained. They have a pleasure in this unrighteousness, so they are purposely choosing evil because they want an excuse for their sin of racial amalgamation. They want an excuse for their sin to destroy the covenant of God. This loving your God and loving your people goes right back to the very, what I call the covenant of birth. People say, well, I don't know, I don't see, where do you get this idea of race and gender? Well, first off, every person sees it every time they look at a newborn baby. They're seeing the covenant of birth. They're seeing a baby that is born with a race and a gender. They're not seeing a baby accountant. They're not seeing a baby gas station attendant. They're not seeing a baby clerk at the Walmart. They're not seeing any type of identification we place on a child as it grows older. There's only two identification marks that nature or God placed upon that child. And those two identification marks, it's race and it's gender. It's the birth covenant. And we see it testified every time a newborn baby is made. And that's the truth that they reject. They reject the truth of loving their God and loving their people. And they have pleasure in righteousness. What did the Apostle Paul mean when he said they had pleasure in righteousness? To answer that, we have to remember all the law hangs on what those two commandments say. Loving God and loving your people. You cannot have righteousness if these commandments are violated. If that is true, then, and I believe it is, then most Christians today may in some degree fulfill the first commandment, but they fail in the second. Because the whole thrust of the modern church age over the past 35, 40, 50 years has been the thrust towards interracial marriage and acceptance. That's why if you go to any large church in every city, you're going to find non-whites scattered throughout the congregation. You may find some an all-white church in a little tiny country church, but it's only white by default. First black moves in the neighborhood, they'll be begging them to come into the church. We had a couple come by here a number of years back. I've told the story before. And they said that they were looking for a little small white church. They're down in Texas, looking for a little small white church. They finally found one. They thought, well, this is safe. It's all white. And they started going there. And after a few months, the preacher announced they're going to start bringing, or start a bus ministry. And for long, they started bringing in blacks from the ghetto. And the very first Sunday that happened, their little daughter, a little 7-year-old daughter, was told by the Sunday school teacher in this previously all-white church that if she did not play with the little black boys and girls, that would make Jesus unhappy, and she would go to hell. It's the one world church. And it's the one world church, again, is not where people are looking. The one world church, the church of mass deception, is in our churches scattered at every corner of America today. If you fail the second commandment, then you fail the first also. That is why he tells, or that's why he sends a strong delusion, to believe a lie. And when you believe a lie, you're ready to be accepted into America's new religion. Let's close word of prayer. Our Father, we ask that you heighten our alert, help us be alert. Help to identify this mass deception that going massive deception, an impressively massive deception. We see throughout television, newscasters and entertainers who claim loving Jesus. We like to see the idea that the Lord is lifted up. But we're wary of those who lift up the name of Jesus and then at the same time tells that Jesus promotes interracial marriage and international brotherhood of man. We're wary of that. Help us be alert to that. We know our emotions are so powerful. Our emotions will dictate our decisions. If we allow those emotions to get control of us, they're hard to reject them because emotion trumps logic every time. Help us be strong and wary and be on guard for ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, and our children, that we do not fall deception to the Antichrist. We ask it all in your name.
The spirit's willing, the body's breaking. Follow the path between